Every week, I try to tell you who are some players you can buy low and sell high to maximize your return in the trade market. But what about some players who look like they are some great sell high candidates, peak performers, way outperforming what they've done last year or maybe even ever in their career, but that you should not sell? Here are a few guys that come to mind that I think you should not be trading away if you're lucky enough to have them. And if you don't, maybe even think about buying high. The biggest name here, Jarred Kelenic of the Seattle Mariners. We all know what his story is. Top prospect, former first-round pick of the New York Mets. Came over in that massive trade a couple years ago, and last year was basically a bust. Let's call it what it was. Came up, everyone thought he was going to break out and prove the Mets wrong. It did not happen. Looked like he maybe couldn't even hack it in the majors. But then we all forgot the fact that last year he was only 22 years old. You don't get to be a top 5 overall prospect for nothing. And so what changed? Well, a lot. Still in Seattle, got another shot this year, and he is making the most of it. And that's an understatement. Batting .304, but slugging .598. 7 home runs so far, and that puts him on pace for 45. Now, I actually didn't just come up with that. Got that number from a friend of mine, Nick Gott, who I actually used to do baseball podcasts with over at Rotoballer. Nick, thanks for letting me steal your stats. He's a writer at Fangraphs, and his premature power prognostications says that Kelenic right now could be on pace to be among the league leaders in home runs with the start he's gotten off to. Is it legit is the question, and well, obviously I'm telling you yes. I'm not saying 45 homers is in the bag. He is definitely proving that the adjustments he's made so far are working. So, might have read about this. If not, let me tell you, he has changed his stance, in fact, quite a bit over the last couple of years, a little bit more open. And the key is that he's now actually waiting a little bit, being more patient, and that's always a good thing for a hitter. And you'll see it in his spray chart. That's another thing that's been talked about, is he's hitting it to all fields. So even though it's a little misleading because his pull rate has jumped up, when he's getting the ball, he's squaring up on it, but he's hitting it to all fields. And when they fall in or land over the fence, he's making the most of it. He's got legit power. We always knew that. The all fields approach, that plays well no matter what type of hitter you are. And again, the fact that he has made these adjustments and they're sticking, he is going to stick. I don't see any reason why you would flip him, try to give up on him. Don't think that you're being clever by, parlaying this 1 month sample. Let's not forget, just a year ago, this is what everyone thought he could have and should have been doing, and now he's doing it, so why wouldn't you believe it? Now on the pitching side, let's talk about a veteran here in Kevin Gausman. It's kind of weird because I don't understand why anybody would be trading him at all. I mean, we've seen what he's done the last couple of years. Going to Toronto, I personally, a couple of years ago, thought maybe that move to the AL East, to Toronto, more of a hitter's venue, that would be bad for him. And it wasn't. And now that he's pitching even better, he is pitching even better than he has the last couple of years. I mean, we're talking legit Cy Young candidate. Yeah, I see that he's been traded a lot in some leagues for guys like Joe Musgrove. Some platforms like Yahoo, for example, you can see what's been happening. I like to kind of check in there and see what people are thinking, the trade market. And I kid you not, Gausman on a single day was traded about 32 times. And like 90% of those trades was straight up for Joe Musgrove. Now, I just talked about Musgrove a couple days ago on my Panic Players video because coming off of the IL, his first 2 starts, he's gotten lit up. And what I said was, well, don't panic. Keep Musgrove. It's okay. He should be fine. It's not a physical thing. I don't think it's the injury bothering him. It just knocking the rust off, right? Because he missed a month. He had that game in Mexico City, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's not about Musgrove. It's like, why are you trading Kevin Gausman? He still has a legit path to be the Cy Young Award winner. As of right now, boasting the best strikeout rate, lowest walk rate, and best expected ERA of his entire career. And this is a guy who's now 32. So I ask again, rhetorically, why would anybody even think about trading away Kevin Gausman at this point? Have you seen what he's done the last couple of years? You're somehow now that he's been in the majors for a decade, now thinking maybe it's a fluke. If someone's willing to give you Gausman for a guy like Musgrove or really almost any starter in your rotation who isn't one of those top aces who was drafted in like the first or second round, you take it. And that leads me to another veteran pitcher who I could understand you may be a little skeptical about, and I will tell you honestly, I thought about putting him in my sell high video last week, but then I backed off because I dug into it, I looked, and Sonny Gray in Minnesota, I think he's going to be a consistent performer all year long. Is he going to wind up leading the AL in ERA? Okay, maybe not. But at this point, not only the track record, it's not just the fact that he's been around this many years, he's done it before. He's been a little up and down. It was great in Oakland, and of course went to New York, not so great. Back to Cincinnati, now in Minnesota. Some good years, some bad years, some injuries, just typical pitcher stuff. What's different now? He said in his own words, "I'm still adapting, but more than anything, I'm a little older and I completely understand myself. I know what the numbers mean and I know how my pitches play to get guys out." Truly, knowing yourself is a wonderful thing no matter how old you are or what you do. But as a pitcher who has to throw multiple innings against the best hitters in the world, that's really important. Also talked about in this great interview, it's also an article on Fangraphs, incidentally, he talked about how in New York, it wasn't the pressure of being in that big market that got to him. It's that they kind of messed with his pitch mix. They told him to stop throwing this two-seamer. Basically, he got away from what really worked and what he knew he had done that was successful. He knows himself. He's doing what works. It's working. He's healthy. He's throwing a lot of innings. This is the kind of guy who could be a fantasy ace. And now starting pitcher in his prime at 27 kind of came out of nowhere. Justin Steele of the Chicago Cubs, career year. I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say it. I told you so. If you look at my preseason sleepers, pitchers who could break out, he was front and center. This is a guy I knew I wanted a lot of in fantasy. I got him as many places as I could, and he's doing, well, maybe even better than I expected. 1.49 ERA, 0.96 whip, 4 wins, no losses. Simply put, Steele is a southpaw, and he just doesn't give up hard contact. He will not get blown up in any particular start for the most part because he just doesn't let hitters take him deep. So far, only 2 homers allowed in 6 starts, and this is a continuation of last season. He only allowed 8 home runs all last year over 24 starts. He doesn't do anything fancy either. It's fastball, slider. That's it. He just knows how to locate. While I think it's reasonable to expect some regression, maybe ERA a little bit over 2 at some point, but still, this is not a guy I'm looking at and saying, yeah, this isn't going to last. He's about to get hit hard in one of these starts. It doesn't happen to him. If you did draft him, be happy. Celebrate. Keep him. If you didn't and someone feels like they're trying to throw him out as bait and get someone in return, take him. And now for a young pitcher, let's talk Hunter Brown of the Houston Astros. It's hard to know exactly what to make of him. We know he's a top prospect. The talent is there, but super inconsistent this year. And it's almost funny if you look at his game log, exactly what's happening. Out of 6 starts so far this season, in 3 of them, that's half, he's gone exactly 7 innings with no earned runs allowed. In the other 3 starts, either 4 1/3 or 4 2/3 innings with multiple runs allowed. He's either going to be spot on or he's not going to make it out of the 5th. And you can usually tell right away because the first inning has kind of been his bugaboo in those bad starts. Now, unfortunately, in fantasy leagues, you can't pull a pitcher out of your starting lineup once the first inning has started. So you just have to kind of know, and of course you can't predict when he's going to be on or not. Dug into the splits, didn't really find anything too helpful. It's not a home road thing. It's not a day-night thing. He did face the Braves in one of those bad starts and the Giants, which is a decent offense, in another one. But then he faced the Tigers in the very first start of the season and did really badly against them. The fact is, this is a young pitcher. It's going to happen. Every young pitcher, no matter how good, will have some of these off nights. But that doesn't mean you get rid of him, you flip him after one bad start because you're frustrated. Because if he goes 7 scoreless the next time out, it makes up for it and it evens out. And even in his bad starts, he's striking out hitters. 36 Ks, 34 innings already. Reminds me of a guy I talked about on my other video, Nick Lodolo. Doesn't have quite that same strikeout upside, not quite, but he's also not getting hit quite as hard when he is off. So again, these young pitchers, you stick with them, he'll probably get better, smooth out those rough edges. Then back to hitters, how about Thairo Estrada, utility guy for the San Francisco Giants? Although he really isn't now, he's the everyday shortstop, And if he wasn't the shortstop, he'd be the everyday second baseman. And it doesn't matter where he plays because he qualifies at second, short, and outfield, which is great for fantasy. But he belongs in the lineup every day, and he is in there almost every day, which for the Giants, you know how they use players, that's pretty impressive. Started out the season hitting toward the bottom of the order, and now he's solidly in the number 2 spot every night. That means he's going to score a lot of runs, and he's doing that. He's crossed the plate 20 times already. It's the same as Bo Bichette and Wander Franco. Already stolen 9 bases. That's top 10 in the majors. Same as Starling Marte, more than Julio Rodriguez. Oh, and he's also batting .342 for what that's worth. And we'll throw 4 homers in the mix there too. So you see what I'm saying? Helping you in every category, but especially batting average and runs. Oh, and steals. Now, unlike Nico Hoerner, who again is doing a lot of the same things, but I feel like Nico's just a little bit overextended beyond what he's truly capable of doing. Estrada, I think, will do this consistently over the course of the season. Maybe not .342, but his versatility, his help across the board, and again, his perceived value, I don't think is nearly as high as a guy like Hoerner. So I'm not trading Estrada if I have him. I'm keeping him. I'm using him wherever I can fit him in. And even if that's making him my outfielder, I'm doing that. And in fact, I am doing that in one of my leagues, my endgame league, because he's so valuable. He has to be somewhere in your lineup. Now, I mentioned Hoerner and Musgrove and some of those other players maybe you should be worried about. Go back and see what I said about those guys on my latest panic video.